We have an amazing panel. We have four people that care deeply about our kids and their education. Garrett actually didn't finish college. We'll talk later about that, Garrett, but didn't finish college in order to start Sora Schools, an online high school. John just told me, I thought it was a handful of education companies. I think it's 9 or 10 or 11 education companies he has started, and he's invested in many, many more. Ted made a shit ton of money as a venture capitalist, and then has dedicated the last at least 10 years of his life trying to help educators and school systems sort of adopt technology and integrate technology, which of course means AI, into their systems so we can get kids ready. And Sophie has been on the ground, probably she and Garrett closest to kind of on the front lines teaching kids, and in her case, younger kids, using technology to accelerate their learning, and sort of the pros and cons of all that. So we have an amazing panel today. Welcome all. Let's get started. I'm going to start right at the top with the question that I get asked all the time, mostly by parents, which is, and Garrett, I'm going to ask you to lead us off here. Are kids cheating if they're using AI at school?
I'll try not to do this right off the bat, but I have to say it depends for a little bit. Learning things by heart is helpful, I promise. But the most important thing that kids can practice is being useful, making useful things with whatever tools they have at their disposal. So I would encourage students at every turn to use AI, to use the tools that they have, not only because that's what matters, but because everyone else is doing it too, I promise.
And okay, so other panelists, do we agree? Is anyone here in the panel saying that we should not, like, we should be limiting in some way, or what governance or limits, or what's our philosophy around these kids using AI in school? Anybody else have a point of view on this?
I think that we should definitely use AI, but there's a time and a place for it. And so it depends on what you're trying to teach kids. And if you're trying to teach them skills like, focus and, or well, actually not focus necessarily, but there is a time and a place to use AI and test with it and to test the skills that you need to use it well. And there's a time and a place to test for skills that don't need AI and actually would be better off without AI. So I would take a hybrid approach.
And then, so if I'm learning a lot with AI, let's say a lot, so maybe more than what you're suggesting, less than what Garrett's suggesting, or maybe as much as what Garrett's proposing. If I'm using AI every day at school as a student, the follow-up question tends to be from parents that I get and from educators, well, they're not going to learn. Like, they're not going to actually learn. So Ted or John, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I'll start with on the cheating front. I think the real cheating that's going on is we're cheating kids of their future if we don't let them run fast and far with AI. So to me, it's not a question of are they cheating to do something low level, on their, with AI versus on their own. And the reality is it's moving at warp speed. It's going to completely restructure labor markets. It's going to have profound ramifications for kids. And if they're not equipped with AI skills, they're going to be in a world of hurt.
But does equipping them with AI skills means that they have to learn history or math or physics or whatever, kind of relying on AI? I guess that's the question. Educators, I think that's what's going through their head, right? Like, no one's going to disagree with you, Ted, around we got to get these kids ready to get a job when they're coming out of college, presumably. But like, what about when they're in high school? How much should they be relying on AI to, frankly, get their homework done and get good test results?
Like, it can be done with the work you're doing in school as it is. I mean, it's incredible. I'm sure most everybody here is using it a lot. I mean, it's like this incredible thought partner. And so you can have Socratic dialogue with it. And I'm seeing really remarkable things in any type of a course, whether it's liberal arts or STEM, where kids are turbocharging their ability to move forward. And I would actually say any assignment that AI can do is probably not a very well thought out assignment.
Oh, that's interesting. I love that. I would agree with that, right? If AI can nail it, that's probably a failure on the educator who created the assignment. I think is one way to think about it. John, you're trying to accelerate reading with AI. Can you talk about how you're approaching that?
Back to my days running Rocketship public schools, you can kind of think of teacher skills very simply as some people are really great academically, some people are really great with kids, And in order to be a great teacher, you have to be great at both those things. The more that we can lower the level that you have to be great academically to be an effective teacher, it just seems like an obvious win to use AI for that to me.
Say more or say it again. The more we can lower just say that again. I don't get it.
Using AI to augment a teacher's academic proficiency, expertise
Got it.
is a clear win, because you're not going to use AI to, better connect with kids and things like that. That's what teachers have to be great at. But, the academic burden, we can definitely lower that with AI.
Got it. That makes sense. So our educators need to be as AI savvy as the kids, at least, presumably.
Probably more, yeah.
Probably more, right?
I do
All right.
think that there's a place for not using AI as well as a place for using AI. And like some of the issues I'm seeing already in myself around over-reliance and not thinking or thinking in a new way and not thinking in as reflective of a way, but thinking in a different way. And so even stuff like writing, if you're using AI all of the time, you're sort of not actually physically writing and you're not processing information or your thoughts in the same way. So I'm like fully behind what you guys are saying around the need to use it and to enter the workforce with these skills. But I think particularly for younger kids, if you're not also learning how to work through your own thoughts offline, then you are missing out on an opportunity to develop core skills around just learning and reflection and thinking.
Yeah, maybe that's one way we could think about it, Sophie, which is sort of online. When I'm online, I will be using my AIs to learn and to pass the test, get the good score. But maybe we need to carve out this offline time where there's no technology, including AI. I'm curious what you think, Sophie, around how early should kids be playing with AI? I know because you focus more on younger students. What's been your experience with integrating technology into learning, and at what ages?
I don't know, like AI is such a powerful tool. I feel like you wouldn't give a 4-year-old a chainsaw and say build a chair. You would be sort of teaching them how to measure and how to, develop their fine motor skills, etc., and build them up to fully using AI. So I think it's really important that younger kids actually understand how these language models work, and how to think about them and think through it before they start becoming power users of AI. So I just think that I would sort of gently, along with their developmental stage, help them use AI in a way that's appropriate to that stage, rather than just saying, it's free, go ahead and use it. I would feel the same way about the internet and sort of all sorts of technical products.
Tough to manage though, right? I mean, it's on
Yeah.
the phone. The phone is in the classroom with the kid. I know schools are battling with just even today, phones and social media, let alone AI.
But it depends on the age. And also, I wouldn't conflate AI with social media. I think social media is clearly very harmful, whereas AI is not clearly harmful. It's an amazing tool if used in the right way. But I think with the younger kids, with primary school kids, it's really important to introduce it in the right way at the right time. As you get older, I think that you have more of the skills that you need to use it safely and well.
If you had to guess what that age is, I'd be curious what others think. What is that age, Sophie? Like, when can we be less concerned about sort of letting loose the technology with our kids? Is it middle school? Is it
AI.
high school? Yeah.
Well, it's so nascent. I don't know how to answer that well. I don't know.
All right, Ted, what are your thoughts? If you were you're a parent today and you've got 3 kids, one's in high school, one's middle school, whatever, think about a typical family with 2 or 3 kids, and they're like, okay, when do I want to keep them pure, if you will, from not so much from AI, but like, just keep technology out of their learning experience, and when is it safer and more appropriate to introduce? How would if someone asked you that question, how would you advise them?
I'll give you a specific example. I've seen 4th graders take in a history lesson using AI to create and illustrate a book that in one day they've written a book with illustrations, put it on Amazon, and it's publishable, and their parents can order it. And you say, like, why? I mean, my mind goes, why wouldn't we want every kid to have a chance to, and these kids are getting excited about the historical figure event they're writing about. They're getting the incredible sense of pride you get that I created something. And then they debate each other, they explain to each other what they thought. And I think that whole aspect of accountability, which is face-to-face interactions and explanations, oral defenses and explanations of the work you've done. Very powerful for kids. And so I look at this and I say, like, oh my gosh, absolutely. I'd want kids at that age to be creating and inventing with the most powerful tool that will ever come along in any of our lifetimes that will define their future opportunities.
So learn history and get a side hustle as an Amazon reseller at the same time. That's right.
Yeah.
Good prep for the workforce. John, you've built a bunch of education companies, invested in, I think you said close to 50 or over 50. We keep waiting for technology to disrupt or, significantly improve education outcomes. And I would say it hasn't happened yet, broadly speaking. Certainly it's been a tough category for entrepreneurs in terms of, generating significant companies that are enduring and profitable. Just like, what's your sense of what's going on? Well, and is AI the force that might really allow us to break through, some of these challenges that were reflected in the outcomes we're getting?
Well, I think the most important thing about AI is it's going to change the goal. The goal used to be get good grades and go to college. And then once you're done with college, you can get a job from someone. And I think that's completely flipped now, where probably the most important thing to measure is how good somebody is at building and entrepreneurship, because the likelihood that you're going to get a job from someone else seems a lot less likely to me now in the next 10 or 15 years than it was. So I think that one of the reasons that technology hasn't helped schools is that schools may not have been pointed in the right direction. If they were more about, kind of curiosity and things like that, I think that we would have seen a pretty significant bump from Google and things like that in the last generation in terms of kids' curiosity, Google, YouTube, things like that.
So you think that job market essentially is kind of the future job market is the disruptive force more so than AI, so to speak, meaning the change in how we're going to make a living will kind of flow backwards into our school systems.
That's traditionally how the school system has supposed to work, although it's it's often a very slow process. So I think the question is really how quickly can we adjust the school system to actually build futures for kids that allow them to participate in an AI-driven economy.
Yeah. So Garrett, you're building a school and running one right now. I think you'd think about it as to graduate kids into this new economy, or at least graduate them into a college that then presumably would pass them on to the new economy. How did that influence how you designed Sora schools and the way you teach?
Yeah, we started in 2019, so we saw a lot of these trends, as John alluded to, simply like the sophistication of Google and YouTube and these things. Education should have already changed its focus. So we were already kind of building with this in mind. AI has absolutely supercharged this, but luckily in the direction that we already deeply believed in, which is our students need as many reps as possible being useful, making useful things, using the tools they have at their disposal, including knowledge, by the way. Knowledge is the most useful component to building things, using knowledge and even knowledge deeply, learned by heart with AI and with all these things, with your brothers and sisters and classmates to create awesome things, right? So that was really the purpose of Sora when we started. This is commonly referred to as project-based learning. I think project-based learning is the perfect match for what we need from students in the AI era.
And so talk. I think for the audience, talk more about the school. It's a high school.
We're a middle and high school, so I can't split hairs on, like Sophie was getting at a really important point. I don't know if infants should be, given an LLM and told have a field day. But with 6th graders, I can guarantee you that they are ready to have really important formative interactions with this AI. So the way we've structured our school, super briefly, because I think it's instructive, is we set kids, yes, we want you to learn history and want you to learn all these important things that traditional schools also emphasize, but we're all going to do it in the context of real world challenges. And everything that we learn will be to create something awesome by the end. And that's how we know, combined with the oral defense that Ted was mentioning, that's how we know that you really know this and know how to use it. That's how we picture learning for the future.
Got it. So Ted, you work a lot with school districts and schools and administrators. You know, could we bring Garrett's model to public schools? And sort of what's getting in the way right now? Is it budgets? Is it we don't have enough teachers because we had a real post-COVID, kind of talent drain out of the profession? Or sort of update us right now in terms of what's going on in public schools and what has to change.
Well, I am at first front and center, a big fan of public schools. We need strong public education. So I am not in the camp of charter schools are great, public schools aren't, private, like all these schools are so behind the curve on this though, that I lose sleep at night. And this whole thing of, we're afraid of it. They might cheat. I heard it makes mistakes. I hope it goes away. I think we need to back up and say the thing that holds us back are the high stakes accountability metrics that encourage kids, push kids, hold teachers accountable to this narrow set of schools. That is exactly what machine intelligence does perfectly. And the reason it's exactly what machine intelligence does perfectly is these tests are administered at such scales that the only way they can be done cost effectively is if they're graded by a computer. And if a computer can grade it, a computer can do it. So I'll put into the chat, this is 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, OpenAI did some benchmarking of GPT 4.0 against all the high stakes exams. It's like 2 years ago, it was already in the top, very top echelon. And I think that's the big fat tsunami coming our way that's going to just devastate so many kids and so many families. Is if you go through 12, 14, 16 years of getting almost as good as machine intelligence, give me an assignment and I'll do it, people aren't going to want to hire you. And what happens when that plays out? I think it's very serious at times for all of us.
So devastate, that's a strong word. Like so let's just focus here and I'll get the other panelists to weigh in. Your concern, just to summarize, is I'll spend all this time, in some cases money, if not through tax dollars or directly to the institution in terms of schooling, I'll spend all this time getting ready for a job that won't be there for me because all I can do is basically pass the test and the machine can pass the test anyway. That's basically what you're saying, right?
And you're already seeing it. The small companies I work with say that they can now get things done with 2 or 3 AI empowered hires instead of 15, 20, 25 before. So it'll be this massive compression of white collar jobs, particularly the jobs fresh college grads used to roll into. And if you basically are a go fetch a dog biscuit kid who is just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it, trust me, I'm sure everybody's finding the same thing I find. I'd rather use, Claude or GPT than, have to manage somebody who's just telling me what to do, tell me what to do. And the issue is if we don't focus on this, we saw wave 1 of the decimation, right? When robotics and outsourcing wiped out lots and lots of physical labor jobs, and robotics improves slowly. AI is improving, 2, 3, 4x a year. And so the pace of change has to be way, more rapid than what we're seeing already.
So John, are you sharing this level of concern? I mean, Ted's injecting a high level of concern in a pretty short timeline. What's your take on this?
Sure. I mean, I have a daughter who's 22 and she was trained as a pre-med. She's thinking about going to law school, but what's the greatest skill she's got coming out of college? It's hustling and figuring out how to find a job. I mean, all these things, these social emotional skills that we don't teach just turn out to be the most important ones in all of our lives. And so, we've been kind of kicking that can down the road in school systems for a long time now. But, in the world of AI, what is it to be human? Being human is about having these social emotional skills. And if you want to differentiate from the customer support AI that can take your job, you better be good at that stuff. So
we've been kicking the can down the road. Say more. So basically, these are skills that we know matter in life, and we don't teach them. We don't have an education system that knows how to teach them. We don't have teachers that know how to teach them. All the above.
We don't test for them. I mean, the thing is
Right.
that when you have these super high stake tests that every superintendent gets their jobs or loses their jobs over. And, you know, crazy reports are written about who's doing a good job teaching or not based on these results. And that's what's going to get taught. And that's what we've been doing now the last 20 years, which, you know, whatever, I'm sure it had good intentions, but it's clearly past its sell-by date at this point. So I think we've got to take a more radical shift in terms of what we're trying to do in schools rather than just using AI to kind of supercharge the college for all high stakes testing kind of world.
So, and I want to go back to that, John, in a moment, but Sophie, I know this is a topic important to you around social skills and emotional intelligence, and, you know, how and when we build those skills and manage the technology influence. And so we do create time and space to develop those skills. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I just completely agree with everything that John has just said. Even like way before AI had become such a big part of our thinking, schools are just not fit for purpose. They were built in the Industrial Revolution. They don't make any sense. And I think now more than ever, people are really waking up to that fact. So I think it's actually an exciting time in education, because I think there are sort of economic imperatives which might force governments to really change the regulation around what are we testing for in schools. And it all comes back down to those tests. Like the UK, I think, has the youngest or the highest amount of teachers leaving the profession early on because the bureaucracy is mad and they don't get to teach. Actually, again, going back to primary school, I think a lot of these really important skills that you can assess, but you don't need to assess them in the way that we've been taught to think about, sort of these high pressure tests at the end of each year. I think that they're built, the foundations of them are built, you know, really early on. If you look at children's brain development, and it's really important to protect children and protect their ability to develop those skills in primary schools, again, by introducing sort of offline skills and making sure that we've got such an anxious generation, and quite a lot of it is to do with the way that technology is by design sort of destroying kids' brains. Again, this is social media more than AI, but I feel passionately about focusing on those skills, making our education system focus on those skills, and then changing what we teach and how and at what stage to enhance those skills in kids. And in the UK, again, like all of our companies and employers complain that they get graduates that just don't have the skills they need because they can't literally pick up a phone and call someone. They can't stand up in front of people and speak. And so, there's a problem, and it's a good time to change the system.
So let's turn our attention to how then. Like, I think we see this could be the catalyst, I guess, or this fact that we're graduating kids into jobs they can't get, which doesn't set them up well, obviously, in terms of their future. So what's going to happen? So I get asked a lot by educators, like, I'm waiting for the playbook. And if we're all waiting, everyone is sitting around waiting for the playbook, right? It's just, there isn't one. And to Ted's point, it's moving so fast that you kind of have to get in there and figure it out. So I'm curious what you guys think. Garrett, you might think SOAR that's one version of a playbook, right? But that it's not, it's 20 grand, 25 grand a year. So it's currently, and I'm sure over time with scale, you'd like to bring that price down. But what have you seen, or what would you suggest as an effective pilot or prototype? What's a way into this that we can put into action so that we can get evidence that this new way is sort of going to work and is a better way? Ted, I'll start with you. Or what have you been doing to try to show this, to try to show the path to a superintendent or a principal?
Well, I give a lot of talks, and it's always revealing to me. I'll ask the question, how many of you, whether it's principals or superintendents, already have in place resources and programs that let your kids run far and deep with AI skills? I, in my world, would like to have every hand go up. Almost no hands go up. And I explain why this is so urgent. I have no dog in this hunt. My kids are out of school. I'm done with my career, and yet I throw myself at this because I do feel it's so fundamentally urgent that it has every potential to rip apart civil society. And by the way, we're already seeing signs of that. So my advice to teachers is, first, don't fear it. And don't feel like you've got to be the expert. I mean, honestly, these kids will run so much faster than a teacher will on this, that a teacher that feels like I've got to teach them this has the wrong mindset. The right mindset is, I want you to use this. We're going to learn together. And people will say, well, like one example I get, we all get, like, oh, won't they cheat when they do their essays? I say two things to that. First of all, they can't write as it is, right? It's not as though kids are coming out of high school writing beautifully. The writing skills are abysmal, right? The second thing, though, is I say, if you've got a writing assignment, just write in front of them, put it into ChatGPT, and say, if your essay is about this good, that is a C. Our new C is what AI can do. Make it better.
Right,
And
right.
so suddenly you take kids from being way underpowered in the writing to every high school grad could be writing really well. And
Okay,
yeah.
but I want to get tactically here. Let's spec out a pilot. Others weigh in here. John, I know you work a lot with schools as well. Like you all do. What's this pilot look like? Is it one class, English? Is it one grade? Is it 5 teachers? Like, how do we bring this into reality and get some use cases, get some case studies that were, it's a muscle, right? And if the schools can't build this muscle and don't get some reinforcement for it, they won't. And then we're going to be having this conversation just worse in 3 years. So what's the pilot look like let's start with a school. Someone offer up a pilot. How long, how many people are in it? How many teachers are in it? What's it look like?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on how to get public schools to do things, but I have started schools. And I think, in the same way that Garrett started Sora, you kind of have to go back to like, what are your first principles in building this school? And I think one first principle you can be pretty confident in is that we're entering the age of one-on-one tutoring for every student. And with one-on-one tutoring, I mean, there's lots of research on one-on-one tutoring. A couple hours a day of academic tutoring is plenty. You just don't need 6 hours a day of tutoring. And so you start with a school that's got a couple hours a day of tutoring, and let's assume over the next 5 or 10 years it gets pretty good, and kids are learning at least as much as they're learning today. Then you've got 4 more hours. What are you going to do with it? And I think that's the interesting part. That there's so many choices for what to build around that in your school. Very similar to what I would build, which is, let's teach kids to birds. But there's certainly many other things you could do. You could have a school which 2 days a week the students are off campus working in vocational ed jobs like healthcare or whatever, things like that. You could have an early college program. There's so many things you could do once that time's freed up. That's kind of the direction I'd go.
Garrett, what would you do? Because what is the 1 or 2 things? So give us 1 or 2 sort of resources or tactics that you deploy at Sora that you would say to a public high school superintendent or principal rather, that they should adopt from you. Just 1 or 2 that you think would be the fastest way to show that public school how to incorporate AI and change the outcomes.
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's funny you say it this way, though, because we at Sora also feel this unbelievable urgency. So we've committed to doing some sort of pilot like this for the coming school year. So it's very top of mind. Part of it is whole-scale transformation, but in the spirit of your question, I'll say I think it's about ending a course with a project that the student has to defend to peers. Like that. A project where they're equipped with AI skills, they have to make something awesome, and then defend the choices and philosophy and everything regarding the design of the project. Once you have that being the assessment, and I don't know exactly how this bubbles up to all the testing requirements within a district and a state, yada, yada. But once you have that as the cultural motion of success in a course, I think things start to look better.
Got it.
Greg,
Go ahead, Ted.
I would point to where I think the real learning takes place in school environments, and that's not the classroom, but the after-school activities. And if you haven't read Joel Maida's book, In Search of Deeper Learning, that's what they concluded when they looked at 30 progressive high schools. They basically said, we found very little evidence of real learning in the classes. We found amazing things going on in after school. And so if you said if a superintendent said to me, how do I pilot it? I would start with some after school things, because if kids are creating really great, meaningful projects toward an eye, with an eye toward what they can do during the summer. I mean, these kids, the thing about jobs is so interesting, right? There's no limit to the number of jobs a young adult can create. And there's going to be enormous compression in the number of jobs they can apply for. And so I think if we said after school, let them run with it there, it sort of takes the pressure off it being in school. Of course, I would love it to be throughout school. I'm just saying, realistically, having spent 15 years banging on schools and telling them how urgent it is to change and seeing them still going 2 miles an hour off and backwards, I'd be focused on after school.
Yep. All right, we're going to start to wrap up here. Sophie, wrap up in terms of my questions. We'll get the audience questions, but I want to go back to Sophie on this reality that we lost the battle for our kids' attention, right? Essentially, social media won. We never had a chance as a human, as a species, right? The algorithms are just too good. Are you worried about losing sort of our cognitive, not losing our cognitive abilities, but sort of, I think you are, right? Say more about that in terms of, if we introduce AI too early, do we just lose, or do our thinking muscles atrophy? Because our attention muscles, we clearly lost them years ago, it seems.
Okay, so first of all, I hate social media, and I think it is destroying our kids, and it should be banned, and we'll think of it like we do cigarettes in the future. I think that there is that same risk. It's not the same risk, because I can't say like almost anything good about the social media as it currently is. But I do think that there is a risk to atrophying our ability to be reflective and to understand what we think without referencing this extremely powerful and convincing machine. And so when you were just asking that question about what would you do in a school, and I was thinking, I was getting like excited in my imagination, I was thinking I would probably have 2 days of learnings with personalized tuition delivered through AI, and then 3 days or 2 days or 1 day where you just switch everything off and you do activities together, because I do think that we still need to teach kids and adults too how to exist without technology and how to develop those skills of teamwork, collaboration, communication. So I definitely think that that's a risk. And if there was one thing I would say to families listening in, it would be like, try and protect time at home where you go offline. Definitely engage with AI, learn with your kids, have that spirit of curiosity. Doesn't matter if you don't know anything about it, but also have moments at home where you're all offline. You go away from your phone and you engage with each other as human beings.
So I got to thank the panel, not just for the hour today, but all of your work. We all appreciate you and for your efforts, and for all the educators